When We Were Young 2024 all album plays, 57 records from front to back, no matter how long it takes. And the Emo Social Club, we're reviewing all of them. And on this episode, we are talking about Chiodos, All's Well That Ends Well. Lizzie, before All's Well does end well, tell us a little bit more about this record and Chiodos.
So this is their first album that they put out on Equal Vision Records. It came out in July of 2005. There's a lot of Shakespeare references on this album. It references King Lear, the two gentlemen of Verona, and of course, Romeo and Juliet. This peaked at 164 on the Billboard 200 charts, but number 3 on the Heat Seekers charts. Yep. The singles that came off of here were One Day All Women Will Become Monsters, probably true. The words Best Friends Become Redefined. Baby You Wouldn't Last a Minute on the Creek, and All Neards Beware. Is that how you say it?
You know what? I've listened to this band for a long time. I'm not going to learn how to pronounce that word.
Okay.
Nereids is how I've always said
Nereids? Okay.
I don't care.
Anyway, if we want to talk about how you always talk to me about word salad, masters of word saladry.
I mean, they're copying the first chef of all time, William Shakespeare. Before we get into our thoughts on this record, make sure you are subscribed. We are almost to the end of all of these albums. 57 records will be in a playlist down below. You want to subscribe to know when we talk about the next one. You want to like this one to let people know about Chiodos, an album that came out almost 20 years ago. So you want to let people know about it. Here are my thoughts on Chiodos, All's Well That Ends Well. I have an insane amount of Chiodos lore. I've told you so much about it.
I know so much.
We might talk about it at the end of recording on here, so we might have an additional thing over on our Patreon and YouTube membership, but I have a lot of Chiodos lore. This is a band that I have spent a lot of time with. This is a band that I have spent a lot of experience in my life with, a band that heavily influenced my old band, a band that like basically we listened to this and said, we can do some of that. We can do a little bit of that. This was heavy rotation in my old band. So this is a band that I know a lot about. I downloaded this record off of whatever download at the time, LimeWire, whatever it may have been, at kind of like the hey, you're going to love this band. You're going to like this. And at first I was a little bit like, I don't know. Like I heard Baby You Wouldn't Last a Minute on the Creek. Craig hits this note in it that is like not the correct note. And it's the note. It's the one, right? I'm like, that's not the right note, man. I'm like, I'm being a pretentious singer, but I'm like, it's not the right note. You're trying to hit a note that's higher than it should be. And fine, whatever. It's the biggest hit off this record, whatever it is. When I went to download this, I apparently downloaded like demos of it.
Love it.
Or like an unfinished version of this record. And that was my reference for the record for like a year. I had a friend who was close to Chiodos, and we never really listened to Chiodos together because it's like, why? We already listened to it. Let's listen to something else together, whatever it is. One day we're driving and I put it on and I put on my version of Chiodos, right? It's like, this is the CD I burned or off my iPod or whatever it is. And she's like, dude, what version is this? And I was like, what do you mean? This is
the correct version.
This is the album. Like, what do you mean? I'm just playing the album. She's like, no, this is like a very different version of this album. Like it's a demo or something, but like, this is not what it is. And then I listened to the actual version of the record, right? Put that actual version on. And I'm like, I think I prefer the demo version. And I listened to this record for this, and I still think I prefer the demo version of this record.
Oh!
The demo version is so goddamn good. It's insane. Like, the vocal melodies and the vocal parts that he hit, and like some parts are like drawn out a little more and there's like more room. Like when you're talking about word salad, like there's more space between some of the vocal lines. Some of the vocals are changed. There's more of Bradley Bell, the keyboardist's vocals on it. For some reason, like they just hit me way more. And every time I listen to this version of the album, I'm like, why doesn't this sound right? It's because I listened for like a year and a half, 2 years to like a demo version of this record that I've been like looking for ever since. And I'm like, I want to like find it again. Most of the songs are like basically the same. It's just a very different sounding vocal performance. It's a very different, like some of the song structures are mildly changed, but like basically the whole thing is there. There Are No Penguins in Alaska is very different on it. Just sound wise, it just sounds very different. One Day Women Will All Become Monsters is very different. And Baby You Wouldn't Last a Minute on the Creek is very different because he hits the right note. So I'm like, dude, that's the one. But then I thought like maybe you're just like doing this stuff in here because you want it to sound more like you can hit this note, right? Even if it's not the right note, I can hit that note. And Craig's a phenomenal singer, so no shade there. It's just not the right note to me. It still does not hit my ear right when I hear that note in the song. It still should be just a smidge lower, just to hit the key right. That is my entire experience with this album that I have listened to for 20 years, that I have been a fan of forever. Listening to this record still, I'm like, I still love this album. I still know every word of this record. I still know every moment on this record. I do feel like this record is so important for the genre. It's so important for like music nerds. It's so important for theater kids. Mm-hmm. It's so important for like musicians who were interested in like the post-hardcore, the metalcore, the emo scene. This is like such a very important record. It is up there with some of the most important records at the time. I put it up against The Used. I put it up against My Chem. I put it up against Paramore. I put it up against like the big ones, you know?
Wow, okay.
This band knew what they were doing. This band had a really good product. We all know that like this is a band that is legendary in the scene. I feel somewhat mixed about some of the songs, but in general, like I can't listen to this record without thinking about how important it was to me at that time. I can't think about this record without thinking of how important it was to the scene. Like it's a Midwest record. It's Midwestern kids like from Rochester Hills, Detroit, a wealthy suburb outside of Detroit. But it's a Midwest band. It's a Midwest record. So like this record is so important. I feel like some songs definitely have stood the test of time. I feel like other ones have not. I feel like some songs in this record are incredible, and I feel like some songs are just okay. But I can't sit here and not say this record is not one of the most important records of the genre, of post-hardcore, of metalcore, of any band that has been influenced by Chiodos or bands that have been influenced by Chiodos. It's like this record is just too good. This record is just too important. My top tracks from Chiodos, All's Well That Ends Well. So let's get this off the bat. The words Best Friend Become Redefined is maybe one of the greatest songs ever written. It's fucking insane. So when we do emo nights, when I do any emo thing, the last song of the night is Helena, My Chem. It's the last song of the night. It used to be Words Best Friend Become Redefined.
Really?
I used to end our emo nights with Words Best Friend. I think it's just because it's like this song hits so damn hard. It's not a pop song. It has no discernible structure. It doesn't have a chorus. It just has the best breakdown you could possibly do. It has the greatest intro riff you could ever do. It has vocal lines that are just ethereal in the background. It's all vibe, it's all mood, and it fucking bangs. I just was like, we're going to keep the energy up. We're going to go out on this like intense note. The breakdown's going to hit. We're all going to like hit that little like Casio keyboard drum machine type thing. And we're all going to like groove for like 2 seconds before we all just bang our heads out. Like it's a great song, a song that has meant a lot to me for a long time. I've been chasing the feeling that I felt when that breakdown hit the first time I heard it forever. I've been chasing that emotion that I heard the first time I heard that. Cause I absolutely like it changed the game for me. I was like, you can just do that. The second best song on this record is No Hardcore Dancing in the Living Room, because my old emo night used to be called No Hardcore Dancing in the Living Room.
Stop.
Where we used to end the night with that, with best friends. I love the way this song builds. I love when this song finally gets into where the song goes to, like the intro part that like builds slowly and then it just goes into like a riff. Like, ooh, it hits. When Chiodos does these sorts of like movements and they do like sort of instrumentals and orchestration and they make it like this big flourishes and big drama in it. Like that's the best thing that the scene has to offer. The theatricality that they bring, not obviously it's Shakespeare, but like the theatricality they bring in the music too is like top notch. And that's why so many bands got influenced by this, because they're like, whatever this is doing, it's really bringing me there. It's really taking me where I want to go. They're going to edge you a little bit, right? It's like, we're not going to hit you with the best parts right now. We're going to build into it and then give you the best part. Yeah. And they have so many moments on this record that are just the best part, right? The note in Baby You Wouldn't Last a Minute is still like that moment, right? You're building to that moment. There's theater in it and then you like fucking hit it. And I think No Hardcore Dancing is the one where like there's a lot of that theatricality that's like all moods, all vibes, all like movements in the music to it. Love that song. My problem is my third favorite is on the deluxe edition, and it's Queen of Diamonds, because I love that acoustic song, but I can't say that because it's not on this record. I'm going to say There's No Penguins in Alaska It's kind of a hit or miss. Like you could throw anything in there. No, it's Nereids Beware. I'm wrong. It's all Nereids Beware. Like that's my third favorite. It's a great technically opener. There's a prelude that goes into it, but yeah, this record fucking rules. All the songs like basically have the same vibe, and like they do so much on this album that pulls from like a core sound that they wanted to create, and they do so many different pieces of it here and there. I think Nereids Beware at least creates that vibe off the top that then you're going to get more of each one of the things that it does on that song as it goes through the record. You're going to get really heavy on Best Friends. You're going to get theater on Baby Wouldn't Last a Minute. You're going to get it on No Hardcore Dancing. So like it just does everything there.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'm not going to put There's No Penguins in Alaska is because that's one where I'm like, the demo version is so much better than this version. Ooh. It's so much better than this version. Not that it's bad. It's a much better version to it. Even the All Nereids Beware version is really like a lot better, but I love this record. It's fucking hard to pick. I love this record. And even if I'm like, there's a better version out there somewhere, I still love this record. Still sitting there in the car like, damn, this doesn't hit as hard as I wanted it to because it's not the old version, but
I get it.
Whatever. My least favorite track on Chiodos, All's Well That Ends Well. I really don't have one. I think that We're Gonna Have Us as Champagne Jam is like kind of forgettable when you get to it. You've just been through so much. You just got through the whole like interludes into and out of There's No Penguins in Alaska. You've been through Best Friends. You've been through Baby Wouldn't Last a Minute. The front of this record up until like you get to No Penguins in Alaska is so good. And then I think Champagne Jam just is the one where it's like, okay. And then you get to No Hardcore Dancing and you're like, okay, we're back. Okay, are we back? Are we back? Dude, are we so back? So I think Champagne Jam is one of those songs where you're like, I can skip it just to get to more of the heat at the end. I think Sandy Jenkins is like a pop punk song and fun and good. I think Trixie and Reptile is the kind of ending that you get from some of these records, the post-hardcore records, where it does something a little bit more experimental. It does a little bit more of that like outro song, like taking you out of it. I think it rules. I think it's great. So like those would be the ones that you're usually like, I don't like these ones. I think they're great. The only one I could say is skip Champagne Jam. Just get to No Hardcore Dancing. You leave No Penguins in Alaska, right? You're moving out. You're in the high seas of Interlude Part 2, and you're moving out of that.
Yeah.
And then instead of going into Champagne Jam, it goes right into you'd be like, wait a minute. We're not out of it at all. We've never left. Champagne Jam, you feel like you leave. I feel like if you went right into Hardcore Dancing.
I went to go find the penguins.
You're like, I didn't leave Alaska.
I'm still searching for the penguins.
There are no snakes in Alaska. The problem is it's not a Metal Gear Solid reference, but there is a Metal Gear Solid line where one of the characters says, snakes don't belong in Alaska. And I just think, there are no penguins in Alaska. I'm like, no, Chiodos did not reference Metal Gear Solid in this. Bring Me the Horizon basically references Metal Gear Solid in everything. It's one of the reasons I love that band so much.
Here are my thoughts on Chiodos' All's Well That Ends Well. So I was aware of Chiodos solely because of Bone Palace Ballet.
Yeah.
Because I had gotten Is It Progression If a Cannibal Uses a Fork on a Warped Horse sampler. So I knew them basically because of that album. And I really like Bone Palace Ballet. I just never listened to anything else by Chiodos because I was like, oh, I like this one album. And then I never really listened to them much ever again. A lot of my friends, though, love Chiodos. But we never bring them up in like day-to-day conversations all the time. So it just never was anything I sought out to listen to. Craig Owens' voice is just so much more unique, especially during the time that this came out. It stands out a lot more. And I also didn't realize how theatrical they actually were.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought Bone Pals Ballet was like their one like little, this is my theatrical outlet. Fair. Because there was a lot of bands that do that. They say, here's my one concept theater kid band album because I got to finally do it. So I thought that that's what it was. It gives me this almost like cabaret core, which I really like cabaret asylum core type of music. I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of hard pressed why nobody didn't force me to listen to this more because this entire album gave me horrorcore vibes, which I love horrorcore. Yeah. I really enjoyed this album. I really liked it. I'm kind of mad at all of my friends who have always listened to Chiodos for not making me listen to them more, knowing what the type of music I listen to and what I've been looking for like replacements for certain bands for. And I don't think I was necessarily shocked because I already liked one of their albums. and that's it. So I didn't really have, either which way feeling about it.
So this was your first time listening to this record?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess it is like age range because like Bone Palace Ballet would have come out in like 2007, 8, somewhere around there.
2007.
Yeah.
And I got it on a 2008 Warped Tour compilation because it was the first time I went to Warped Tour.
Because like, I mean, I was already like into this band by this. So like the reception to Bone Palace Ballet was like, it better be doing more of this. And I think for the most part it did. Who are we talking? It was at Action Adventure. We were talking with them and they were like, no, Bone Palace Ballet fucks. And I was like, it's got like 2 good songs. And then I'm like, all right, it's got Bulls Make Money. It's got Undertaker's Thirst for Revenge. It's got Is a Progression. Yeah, no, that record fucks.
No,
and
it's a good record.
Yeah, and it does take a lot from what they did on this. But I do think like if you're going to listen to Chiodos, this is the record. This is absolutely the Chiodos record.
This was one I just never listened to.
Yeah.
Also because I was like, oh, this one, Bone Palace has such a cute little cover. It's this little skeleton guy.
See, that's the thing. And
I mean, Bone Palace, I was going in from 8th grade into high school.
Right, exactly.
So that's was the time. And when
range, right,
2005 was happening, I was in like early middle school, like 5th grade.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't there.
And I feel like why like when Bone Palace Ballet came out, like I felt like this isn't exactly the same. It's good, but it's not exactly the same. Is because there is a little bit of like a dulling of the Shakespeare side of it. There's a dulling of like what they were doing on this. The artwork is different. It is that like artwork of like, look at this cute couple that has skeleton heads and all that. And that was just really like more of the time, like what was happening. And when this record came out, it felt like no one's doing what Chiodos is doing. Chiodos is doing their own thing. It is so different than everything else. It's taking from influences, but it's making it their own. It's doing a little bit of like the Blood Brothers. It's doing a little bit of that like more like indie side of hardcore and indie side of like heavy screaming music that is like artistic and all this. But it was like no one was doing what Chiodos was doing. And then they started making music that just sounded like what other bands were doing. But a lot of those bands were doing what Chiodos was doing on this. So it's like this weird like cycle of like someone copying Chiodos, Chiodos copying them, copying Chiodos. It was like this weird cycle of it, right? So like Bone Palace Ballet just felt like it was dulling of a lot of those like original influences that happened on this record. So, I mean, it makes sense that like you were into it in 8th grade going into high school because you were like, this is what everything else is doing. And Chiodos is making a really good album with what everyone else is doing at a time when those bands are really hitting with you. And this band hit with me when I was like, I have my chems, I have, these bands, and I want something that's doing something a little bit advanced. This is like advanced emo. This is like emo 201, you know?
Yeah.
So like I'm getting something that I wanted at that time and you're getting the thing that you needed at the time that Bone Palace Ballet hit for you. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, even though it is only with 2.5 years, I mean, it makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
My top tracks from All's Well That Ends Well by Chiodos are The Word Best Friend Becomes Redefined.
It's
really good.
It's unmistakable, man.
It's really good.
Yeah.
My thing is, so this is going to be a constant with my tops, is that this all just sounds so spooky. Mm-hmm. And again, this is very horrorcore centric. I love horrorcore. I'm so mad no one ever told me about this sooner and to like listen to Chiodos more. But because it sounds so spooky, you get like this already theme set of this like morbid interpretation of what they're talking about. Because yes, we're talking about love, romance, lost love, everything that traditionally you would hear during this era of music. But it's redefined in such a different way. You're romanticizing it in this morbid like direction. And I really like that type of stuff. Fucking weird. I don't know what else to tell you. So I really enjoyed this single.
It's unmistakable.
Yeah.
It's one of the best songs of the scene, period. Hands down. Better than Hands Down.
Whoa.
My Dashboard Confessional.
Ooh. My second is Expired in Goreville. Again, it's very spooky.
I knew that would be one for you. I was like, I know this is one that I was going to pick.
I was between this one and another one, but I was like, no, this one is it. But this is where we also have a lot of prose coming in and you're using a lot of alliteration and you're like, this is the sea and I'm taking everything in and that type of stuff. And then you have synth throwing into it. Like this could be on a soundtrack for like a B horror movie.
100%.
And I think overall, this entire album could be a B horror movie, music video movie. Think of Iceland Kills. They did their own stuff with that.
It is, yeah.
And then also with Fall Out Boy, Save Rock and Roll, they also did the similar thing.
Yeah, sure.
Leave me alone. Then my third is To Trixie and Reptile, Thanks for Everything. This is a song that I had said, oh, I have to hit this. Like, I really enjoy this. It's a really good way to wrap up the album. But I think what really got my ear is that it sounded like a My Chem song in the beginning.
Yep, 100%.
But I think for the time, it blends emo of that time and metalcore. And they blend it really seamlessly. Yep. And it's really hard to do. We may not think it's hard to do now because we've seen more bands develop on it. Yeah. But during that time, that was something I feel revolutionary because you were still pretty, you know, you were on one side of the music spectrum. You were either that emo kid or you were the metalcore kid.
Yep.
Pretty much during that time. Or you were a scene. Scene kids were big when I was in high school. So, or you're a scene kid and you're in some little weird ether over here.
Scene kids loved this band. Like when I would go to Warped Tour, it'd be like all the scene kids hanging out at this set. They were fans of this band.
Yeah.
Like this band really crossed all of the boundaries. If you were like, I don't listen to that shit, I listen to this shit. Chiodos was a band you listened to anyway.
I think with this song too, with the lyricism behind it, it's about love, loss, and reflection, but it isn't necessarily being aggressively like mad or violent about it either, which is also something different that we see during this time during the scene. And I'm going to say the one lyric, if this was on Tumblr, it probably was on Tumblr and I was wholly unaware about it, that I would have been the most annoying person about this lyric. Our heart's nightmares won't let this happen again. Oh, I would have.
That would have changed your trajectory.
Oh, that would have changed everything.
Dude.
That's so hard.
You would have been so different today if you knew about that shit earlier.
Would I?
Nah, you're basically the same.
Yeah, I was about to say 16-year-old Lizzie would have actually lost her shit. No, 29-year-old Lizzie is still losing her shit. I still think that's hard as fuck.
Yeah.
And I think the ending overall of this song too, this ends like a funeral procession.
Yes, it does.
And I think it really ties together the entire theming of this album and what they're going for incredibly well. My least favorite track from All's Well That Ends Well by Chiodos. I really don't have any. I was trying to go back and I was hard pressed. And I also felt that there was a lot of singles on this and there was a lot of songs that I felt could be singles. And I really didn't have any that I disliked. I really like this album.
This is one of the albums we've done in these reviews that I definitely think stands as an album, not as like just the singles, right?
Yeah.
We've had plenty of albums where it's like, if I listen to this song on shuffle, I wouldn't feel like it didn't make cohesive sense in the record, right?
Yeah.
In this sense, like listening to this record from front to back and listening to the songs in order, you are rewarded for that. It feels good to like have the journey that you go on this album, the way that the instruments and the piano parts and all the prelude and the interludes like weave together. Like there's no bad track on it because it feels so good as a package, right? Obviously, if like you're on shuffle, you're still going to probably enjoy a song. Like you hear that riff to Trixie and Reptile, even if it's like not at the end of the record, you're still like going to go off to it, you know? So I do think like this is a record that it has a bunch of really good songs on it, and all of those songs make up a very good album too. It's been so weird to be like, the worst track on this is the one that I didn't like when I listened to the full record, but if I listen to it outside of that context, it's good.
Yeah.
And this one, I'm like, you get though both. You get on both. In and out. Context and out of context.
Oh my God.
Those are our thoughts on Chiodos, All's Well That Ends Well. We are not the only ones who had thoughts on this album. We went to Amazon, we went to the critics, and we get some people who may have felt differently than how we felt on this. Unfortunately for Amazon, it's all pretty much positive across the board.
Oh.
Some people mad about like them moving to Equal Vision Records and like getting some money behind them and not making something so raw. And I'm like, all of you are from Michigan. And so you just had some shit to say about them because they got too big to be in Michigan anymore. This review is by Left Man Out, 5-star review, one of 2005's Unexpected Gems, reviewed October 27th, 2005. I'll be the first to admit that I was never a big fan of Chiodos, formerly known as the Chiodos Brothers, before. Personally, I thought they just sounded like an alternate version of the Blood Brothers while being more melodic and cohesive at times. That's true. That's also probably why I liked them so much when I heard them, because I'm like, oh, this is Blood Brothers, but pop. However, after hearing All's Well That Ends Well, I can safely say any preconception I, or anyone for that matter, had of the band can be completely erased. Enter Chiodos. Chiodos does so many things right and extremely different on this record, something which easily sets them apart from most of their peers of the current scene, emo, hardcore, screamo, punk, while adding to their own special elements to the puzzle and create one of the most unique sounds you're likely to hear. To put it simply, if you like any form of emo, hardcore, screamo, or whatever, then this is a must-listen album for you. Chiodos are extremely accomplished musically for being so young. I think the age of most of the band members is somewhere between 19 to 21. That's saying a lot for this release. The guitars weave in and out with each other, creating remarkable patterns and excellent riffs on pieces like The World's Best Friend We Can Redefine and There's Penguins. They just wrote There's Penguins in Alaska. Chiodos also has an extreme range capable of turning something upbeat and popish like Baby Wouldn't Last a Minute on the Creek into a fierce breakdown with volatile screaming and plenty of double bass. Everyone in the band is extremely accomplished musically, and that really pays off for them in the end. There's not a song on here you will want to skip, except maybe the interludes. Every song has its own unique flavor and is distinct from any other on the album. After hearing this album, I can't believe I ever doubted these guys. I'm also glad the guys signed with Equal Vision Records because they are definitely a perfect fit for Chiodos' sound. Like if I said you're a fan of emo, hardcore, screamo, punk, or whatever, then I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy this one. This is already moving up spots in my top records of the year list. I can't wait to see these guys live again because they are as equally amazing live and hear what they have to offer in the future. If this is any indication, this band is destined for good things. So don't let this one pass you by. You'll be missing one of the definite highlights of 2005. And remember, no hardcore dancing in the living room.
Wow.
Yes, he did. All right, this review is by Aquarius Records. 5-star review. Title of the review is Really Heavy, Really Ridiculously Prog, a Little Emo, and with a vocalist who sounds quite a bit like a woman. Reviewed in 2005.
That's a real title.
Every time I sit down to review this record, I just can't seem to put into words what makes it so great. But this record is absolutely my favorite record of 2005, and it seems like it can't be put off any longer. But it's true. I listen to this record every day, all the time. And even after months of nonstop listening, I still can't get enough of it. I'm a bit embarrassed to say I first heard of Chiodos in some magazine touting them as a band to watch or next big thing or something. And rarely do I pay much attention to those sorts of things, but a few things definitely caught my eye. They were described as being really heavy, really ridiculously prog, a little emo, and with a vocalist who sounded quite a bit like a woman. And you know what? That's not really that far off the mark. Imagine the over-the-top prog of Coheed and Cambria and the proggy bombast of Mars Volta, the angular art rock of a band like the Blood Brothers, some super intense Slayer-style metal guitar, lots of piano and keyboards, ranging from delicate balladly bits to go on full Cradle of Filth-style bombast, extremely emo lyrics, and a completely amazing vocalist who can go from a throat-shredding howl to an impossibly high wail. Wrap all that stuff around super complex, multi-part epics chock full of killer riffs and unbelievable hooks, amazing drumming, bizarre arrangements, and vocals that are just so completely gloriously over the top. Some parts of this record are just so massively punishingly crushing, full-on head-banging brutality. Anyway, not sure what else you need to say. It all comes down to the music, so a quick listen to the sound samples should tell you all you need to know. It is indeed the best record of the year. Or am I full of shit? Ooh. Well, just so you know, this is the record of the year. And if for some crazy reason you don't agree, you're probably just mistaken. Or wrong.
Oh.
2005 is a wild year to make Chiodos like the album of the year, because that is From Under the Cork Tree.
Oh shit, yeah.
But I think this album is specifically for a certain genre and a certain type of fan. Obviously, a lot of people who are musicians will love this record and be like, this is a crazy record to play. Meanwhile, Fall Out Boy is doing like four chord shit, 4-chord pop punk. Like, this is clearly like a record for musicians as well. Theater kids, people who like all that stuff. But like, yeah, couldn't find very, very many negative reviews of this record because goddamn.
Punk News, written by Brian Schultz. July 26, 2005. Give it 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Technically 80%-ish.
Yeah, decent enough.
Close to 70%-ish.
Formerly the Chiodos Brothers, the band sound was essentially a lame duck ripoff of, you guessed it, the Blood Brothers. With the name change comes a severe departure from that sound. Generally speaking, the band now trends a more melodic post-hardcore territory, with some screams of the Anatomy of a Ghost / Seosin variety, but with a slight Horse the Band influence in the outfit's liberal use of keyboards and scattered metalcore riff structure. However, there are striking vocals and style similarities to Scary Kids scaring kids as well. Only Chiodos are a bit more original and about 1,000 times as dynamic. In that sense, you could sort of say that Chiodos' second full-length, All's Well That Ends Well, delivers where SKSK's The City Sleeps in Flames failed miserably too.
That's Scary Kids scaring kids.
I know, but I keep going like...
Kuss.
All's Well That Ends Well definitely has its moments and carries on Equal Vision's habit of late-in great artwork and layouts. This one overshadowing its cheesy D&D-esque imagery with interestingly mostly purple-green color combinations and skeletal silhouettes on the back. Everything of which is nearly ruined by the "I'll stop stabbing you when you stop screaming" line scattered around places on the packaging. I don't know. I think that's pretty edgy and cool, but I'm also me. It's not overwhelming, but it's a nice blend of two somewhat polar styles and a pretty refreshing hybrid on the whole.
You know who did the artwork for this? Is the same guy who did the artwork for Mastodon's records.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I've ever listened to Mastodon fully that much in my life, other than
Stay
to get
tuned
a
for
vibe.
our Riot Fest reviews coming to a channel near you soon. Those are our thoughts. Those were the critics' thoughts. But we have one last thought to give you. Should you see this album at When We Were Young 2024? Yeah. Yes. Chiodos knows what they have. Chiodos, the business side of it, right? They know what they have. They know that this record is an insanely popular record. They know that it is a certified emo classic.
Yeah.
Certified hood classic, if you will.
Oh my God.
So they know what they have. We know why they're playing it at this. We know why they're reuniting when they haven't been together for a long time to play this album at When We Were Young. Like, there's no question. You should see this. This is one of the bands that is reuniting to play this record in full that they have not done at all since like the release of it for the first time in almost 20 years. Like, you have to see this. This is like one of the must-sees at the show. Craig Owens is still a fucking rock star. Craig Owens can still sing. Craig Owens is, doing his thing. So it's going to be one of the sets to see at When We Were Young, hands down, no question.
Yeah, I think I will also go see it as well. I've never seen Chiodos, so I would like to see.
Seen them so many times.
I would like to see them live, play their silly little horror word salad set.
Yeah. Even seen them in 2007. They only played for 30 minutes, so they couldn't even play the whole record at Taste of Chaos. So, yeah, I don't think they've played this record in full. Every time they've reunited, they had like newer music and they had like 2 albums to play. So they played like the hits. But yeah, this will be a good time for a lot of people. In the same way, like a lot of people missed the Black Parade back in the day, like that tour. Like, this is the same thing. It's seeing a band that you probably have heard since then, missed out on your opportunity, and now you have that opportunity. No question.
Yeah.
So that's where we'll be. We'll be at the stage. See us at this stage. Say hi if you're at the stage. Where will you be at When We Were Young? Hopefully, when you're watching this video, you're in the comments, you're in the subscribe button, you're liking, you're doing all the stuff you need to do for the YouTube algorithm to let them know that you liked our review of this record. We have all of the reviews. We have all the records being reviewed.
There's so many.
They're in a playlist. 57 records that we've reviewed. Watch the playlist. Watch all of our reviews. Let us know what you think about all of them. Drop a like. Drop a comment. And if you want my Chiodos lore, become a member on YouTube membership or Patreon. Watch, we don't even do it after this. Anyway. But until When We Were Young, until Chiodos, and until All's Well That Ends Well, we will see you there.